Good morning and welcome to the Morning Spotlight Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ham, coming to you as always from the Spotlight Studios here in Morristown, New Jersey. My guest today is the founder of Freestyle Capital Group, a boutique private equity firm that provides education and passive real estate investment opportunities to accredited and sophisticated investors. She partners with strong operators with extensive experience and a solid track record. She's a private equity fund manager as well as a co-sponsor of institutional grade investment opportunities. A lot of big words just in that first paragraph. Her real estate journey began in 2015 when she read Rich Dad Poor Dad, which has probably been the most referenced book on this show. It completely shifted her mindset about money and wealth. She was a law enforcement park ranger at the time, and it took until 2017 for her to prepare to leave the W-2 government job to jump into real estate full time. She started as a real estate agent and went full time into multifamily syndication in early 2020. She is Melanie McDaniel. Melanie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you. So I think the obvious question off of that bio is, how does one go from park ranger to real estate investor? I think that's probably like the question you get asked the most, I would imagine, right? So how do you make that jump?
Yeah, I would say it's less about the technicality piece of it and more about the mindset piece of it, especially if you were raised how I was raised, which is the typical American way: go to school, get good grades, go to college, get a job. My dad, of course, added on to all of that a job with a pension. So that's how I ended up in the federal government.
Yep.
And I had been in the military. So I had, that kind of foot in the door sort of. It was a mentality shift. So lots of reading, learning, motivational. Actually, the thing that helped me the most is like these YouTube compilations of motivational speeches set to like
Right.
music
Yeah.
and
That
just
like sports teams use to get all jacked up. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. But seriously, it was a mindset thing. I mean, jumping, being financially prepared, all that stuff. I mean, I really was probably kind of dumb about it, but I just have myself. I don't have kids. I don't have a spouse. I don't have a pet. I didn't have anything. I got rid of everything. Honestly, I was, very much a minimalist, and I just had me to take care of. So the financial piece, although it was risky and probably a little bit dumb, that was less of the challenge than the mindset shift going from that blue collar worker to an entrepreneur, and not just entrepreneurial, but like this, there's no cap on the wealth we can build. Like just that mind shift was huge.
Right. And reference Rich Dad Poor Dad as like the impetus behind all of this. And I mentioned as I was reading that, I'm pretty sure, I'd have to double check, but I'm confident that that has been the most referenced book by the guests that we've had on this show, because we do a lot of real estate stuff on this show, and that seems to be the thing. So, like, what made you pick up that book? I know that the book itself was, life changing to a certain degree, but like, why grab it? Like, why did you want to start exploring different ways of thinking about how money works and all that kind of stuff?
I have asked myself that question so many times. I actually don't know how the book came into my hands. I assume I was married at the time, and that was a big contention piece in our relationship. Is I was so conservative with money, live within your means, save, retirement, all that stuff. And he inherited a lot of his money. He just had to fax in his bills, and something paid for his bills. So he had
The bank in the sky. Yeah.
a very different mindset about money.
Yeah.
Because I had to work for mine and he didn't. I'm not saying I'm right and he's wrong, or he's right and I'm wrong, but I do think a seed was planted somehow. Maybe he had the book. Maybe I don't know. I actually don't know. So I read the book, and then of course, even back then, back in 2015, the Googlies were listening apparently, and I would get these sponsored ads for the event coming to town, free night, free training night. And then at that night, they sell you the cheap weekend thing. And at the weekend thing, they sell you the $27,000 program, which, by the way, I did all of that. So it worked. Whoever's doing all of that marketing.
It's funny how that stuff works. Yeah.
I don't know how the book initially got in my hands.
Yeah.
I really don't. It's crazy.
Yeah. And so I was listening to another show that you were on, and it went beyond just the book, right? Like, you really dove in with Robert Kiyosaki and like that whole mindset thing, right? Like, you kind of did some, like, it was like a program or like a class.
I did that program. Yeah. I did the free night, the $300, $400 weekend. And then I did the $27,000 coaching program.
Got it.
I stroked that check of money I didn't have. And when I pulled chocks, I left the government job and I left to moved from California to Virginia. It just happened the guy I was dating at the time was had orders and was in the Navy, and I went. But yeah, I went with that debt, that $30,000 in debt. And that's why I was saying earlier, it was probably a little risky and a little dumb, but I wasn't going to pay that 30,000 with my park ranger salary living in Malibu. Like,
Yeah.
so
Right.
it was like, well, I'm SOL at the moment. Might as well just dig myself in deeper and change my life. So
Yeah.
yeah, probably
Yeah.
not the smartest. I'm not recommending that to anyone, but I'm not saying don't do it either.
Well,
Just saying.
I find that really interesting because it's, you mentioned how like, before like conservative with money and save your money and all that kind of stuff. And obviously, government job and, the park ranger salary and all that kind of stuff. And to just like make that jump and like spend 27 grand on a course and all that kind of stuff. Like what was like, was your stomach churning at that point? Like, oh my God, like this is really happening. Like if I'm gonna do this, I'm going all in like right away.
It was the scariest thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
And stomach churning that's a nice way to put it. I woke up every morning, I think at 6:30, just with the pain of whatever the hormone is that is shot from your pancreas when you're scared. Like every morning.
Yeah.
No, it was the scariest thing, and it was ongoing scary and ongoing stress. So even when I moved to Virginia and I was at the time sleeping on the floor on a very 4-inch mattress while I was waiting for my couch to arrive or whatever goods I had. Yeah, wake up and just go to work, whatever that meant, whatever work meant. I would go to the real estate office because I was a real estate agent at the time. That was my stepping stone to doing what I'm doing now,
Yeah.
and just do something. But I would put one of those motivational YouTube videos
Yeah.
on every morning. And I would wake up with that stress. I would listen to that 15, 20 minutes or hours, depending on how long it took me to get ready, and that would prepare me for the day. It would get me through to about 5 p.m. And then I would go to my yoga class every night at 5 or 5:30, depending on the day of the week, do my hour and a half of hot yoga. And that would get me to sleep. And then I would wake up and do it all over again. It was very stressful,
Yeah.
but I have zero regrets because I knew when I did it, I knew it was going to get harder before it got easier. I was prepared mentally for the pain and the hard. I knew it was going to be stressful, and I cried tears, but I picked myself up the floor every day and went and did what I needed to do to make it happen. So
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier, I think in like your first or second answer, like the blue collar worker mindset type of thing, and just like getting in there, getting your hands dirty, getting stuff done, and grinding it out until you achieve whatever you're trying to achieve. Do you think that that was like the kind of the base of like you going through this and getting yourself through that time period of your life and like that work ethic, like if you did not have that, if you didn't have that upbringing background, all that kind of stuff, would you have succeeded, do you think? Maybe that's not a question you can't answer, but was that kind of like, do you think that that was important to your journey?
well, I'll say it was part of my journey. So whether it was or wasn't, it was my journey. So
Yeah.
I do think the blue collar work ethic is super important, but I also just think morals and values. I think not being entitled. I think working for what you have. I think all of that sets you up to be a better entrepreneur. I would say it's probably more challenging for people who inherit money to find the motivation. Like my ex was a great example. Like he had all these dreams of being rich. His trust fund was going to run out eventually, but he could not peel himself off the couch to go work.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that I had to work. I mean, you think about it, it's like it's immigrants will say come to the United States, and they're the ones that own the gas stations, they own the small hotels, they're entrepreneurs. Why? Because they come to our country and they don't feel entitled, they feel grateful for the opportunities. And we Americans were born here and we automatically feel entitled. We don't think about how lucky we are to be Americans and have the opportunities we have. We take it for granted.
Yeah.
People come to our country as immigrants and they work their butts off and they do very well.
Right.
So yeah, I think being blue collar, being an immigrant or something, it gives you some sort of edge over people who are handed everything for sure.
Yeah. And so, we talked about Rich Dad Poor Dad before and how, that is one of the most talked about books on this show. And while it's not like specifically a real estate book, it seems as though a lot of people that read that book get themselves involved in real estate in some capacity. your first foray into real estate was as a real estate agent.
Mhm.
So was there a reason why like real estate was the one that kind of jumped out of that book to you as something that you can kind of get started, and then why real estate agent to kind of get rolling, just kind of get your foot in the door and learn the business?
Yeah, I think Rich Dad Poor Dad is more of a mindset book. It's a mindset of trade your time for money to the quadrant, right? The employee, the self-employed, the business owner, the investor, and we all want to be the investor. So you want your money to make your money, but you can't just roll into investor if you don't have the cash.
Right.
So I was an employee. I went to the next step with self-employed, which a real estate agent is, and then business owner. I mean, I had a team. I get it. I probably just skip over business owner for the most part at scale. Anyway, yes, I own my business, but it's not at scale. I'm still somewhat self-employed, also owning the business, but what I do now, it's one foot in doing the business, one foot in the investment side. Because for what I do, I carve out limited investor portions and general partner portions. So we can talk about that later,
Right.
because that's not where I started. The reason I did real estate agent first was I was going from blue collar job, I had a job, to this whole new experience, entrepreneur and real estate, two very different places. And let's just throw in new state. I went
Yeah.
from California to Virginia.
Right.
So I literally was like just born a naked baby and placed into the world. Okay. So I think I chose to do real estate agent because I felt it was something I could bite off. I didn't know what I knew. In fact, doing that Rich Dad Poor Dad coaching program, I learned a lot. I was listening to hundreds of hours of Bigger Pockets while I was patrolling around the mountains. I didn't know how much I knew. So I thought I needed to start low, low information wise, be a real estate agent, kind of help other people while I kept learning and figuring out what I wanted to do for my investments. Because I knew I wanted to go big. I
Yeah.
just didn't know what that looked like. I
Right.
wanted more doors. I wanted more economies of scale. I didn't, but I couldn't put my finger on it. It was just the stuff I was listening to on the podcast, right? So I'm like, well, I can help other people do their first flip. I can help other people buy their single family rental. I can help. So that's what I did. And that's why I became an agent. It was always a stepping stone. I gave myself 3 years. I said, for 3 years, I will be an agent. And then by then I'll figure out what I want to do and then I'll jump. Well, I did it for 2.5 years. Everything worked out exactly how I planned. And then I got clarity on what I wanted to do and I jumped and that's where I am now. So I think the real estate piece, the book talks about it. It made sense that we want passive income. It made sense that there are tax benefits to real estate. And if I were just going to go buy a franchise or start a business or something, yes, you get passive income. Yes, maybe it builds equity, but not so much the tax incentives that real estate has. I think real estate by definition is so archaic, it's so fundamental. It you can really wrap your mind around it to understand it. And I think that's why a lot of us end up in real estate
Right.
because it's a no effing brainer, if you ask me.
Yeah. Right. No, I would agree
It's
with
not
that.
going to go
Yeah.
out of style to
Yeah.
have a roof over your head or to eat food. And you
Right.
need real estate for both of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So you mentioned like 2.5 years into that path, like you got the clarity and then kind of made the jump. Where was there like a moment like what gave you the clarity? Was there like, you got yourself to a certain financial level and you're like, I could do it now? Or was it something different? Did you like close like some deal and you'd be like, you know what, screw it, I'm getting involved in the next one? Like, how does that, like, what was the, like, what gave you the clarity to make that jump and start doing the bigger stuff that you knew that you wanted to do?
Yeah, so as I was continuing to learn, so as a ranger, I went from 2015 to 2017. It was 2 years of learning, right? So I did the Rich Dad Poor Dad like program, Elite Legacy is what it was called at the time. Plus, I was listening to Bigger Pockets hours a day. I was reading books. Like there was a lot of education happening that you can't like put your finger on, right? It's that mobile university.
Yeah.
So for 2 years, I was learning a lot of information. Little seeds were being planted about doors, economies of scale, apartments, all that stuff. I just couldn't grasp it, although I understood, well, it's just another zero on the end. It's just two zeros on the end,
Yeah.
So Conceptually, I got it, but I couldn't wrap my mind around the numbers until I was in long enough. I was seeing other people do it. I don't know the transition. So, being an agent, helping some people do single family, and a few of them were buying quads. And then I had a guy buy a sixplex. A couple of us were kind of growing together. They were the clients, but we became friends. So, we're kind of growing together. Two guys, we kind of jumped off and we put an LOI in a 32 unit in Greensboro, North Carolina. We got the LOI accepted, and we're all like, now what do we do? So we released, of course. We're like, we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, right.
So, but by then, I could understood that apartments were kind of the direction I wanted to go. One of my partners had been listening to Bigger Pockets or Michael Blanc. I don't know. Michael Blanc is who he liked. I'm like, who's this Michael Blanc? I don't know who that is. And they had his SDA, and that's how we were running our numbers. And then Michael Blanc, because I was living in Virginia, he would do these events. So he had Dealmaker Live, which was in Dallas in the summer, but he had these Virginia, called Financial Freedom Summit. So there was a summit in the winter of, was it spring of 2018 and maybe fall of 2018 and then spring of 2019. So I went to the fall of 2018 one after only learning about him maybe 2 weeks before, and it was nearby. So I went, liked it, liked him. I ended up signing up for his coaching program for buying apartments. So I did the Rich Dad Poor Dad, spent that ton of money, had a bunch of debt on that, even had to play the credit card game, moving from 0% credit cards. Like I did that.
Yeah. That's always a fun game to play. Yeah.
I actually think I made money off of that
Okay.
because you would make money when you transferred to credit cards.
Yeah.
It's funny. I don't recommend it, but I don't not recommend it. Anyway, if you do it right, it works. And it did work for me. Then I was making so much money as a real estate agent. I paid off my debt, paid cash for a car, and even saved $50,000 that I put into my first syndication as an LP in 2019. But anyway, it's just a progression. My point here is it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight, but you've got the destination that everyone should be doing or thinking about right now is to find the clarity. And it takes time to find the clarity. And it's super frustrating because you want to know everything, but you don't know everything and you're learning. So I did Michael Blank's coaching program. I started that at the end of 2018. And then 2019 came along, still didn't have a property, still searching, looking. And then I went to Dealmaker Live. I went to Michael Blank's summer big thing in 2019, July. And somebody there said something. I don't know what it is. Again, it's one of these things I can't quite place my finger on, but I found the clarity in there that of all the jobs on a GP, because I was calling brokers, I was touring properties, I was attempting underwriting. I'm not good at it. My partners did it mostly. Whatever. And I did not like doing most of the stuff.
Yeah.
And the clarity came that I just wanted to deal with investors. I wanted to look for capital. I wanted to find great deals and only place investor capital in the best deals. I didn't want to find the deals. So the clarity came in 2019, that summer, that I just wanted to raise the capital. But around that same time, I found an off-market deal as an agent because I was targeting quads for my investors. They all wanted a quad, live in one unit, rent out the rest, right? Like all these military young guys. And I sent a letter campaign for quads. And there was a guy like, I have a quad, but I also have a 24 unit. Do you sell those? I'm like, I buy those. So it took us from summer of 2019 to I think January or February of 2020 to close that 24 unit. But that was my first apartment. But I had already kind of decided I wanted to just be the capital raiser. But I got the one deal done, found the partner. It was a joint venture. So I've done all the jobs on the GP. And now I know my clarity is I just want to raise capital. I want to talk to investors. And then I want to find and vet great deals and marry the two. So it just took a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, my journey started in 2015. Made the jump in 2017. I didn't get my clarity till 2019 summer. And then I didn't jump from agent to this new line of business until January of 2020. And we all know what happened around February of 2020.
Yeah.
So another 6 months went by before I could really do my new career job, whatever. And then it took me another full year to find a deal worthy of my investors. I turned down a lot of opportunities because it wasn't good enough. So 18 months from the time I had the clarity till the time I closed my first deal.
Right.
Like it's just a journey. It's a long journey. It doesn't happen overnight.
Right. And so also one of the things that I think I really, not that I think I really like, that I did really like about one of the parts of that answer, and this is one of the things that I ask a lot of syndicators that I have on the show, is the idea of the team, right? And like that to me might be the most important thing that you do because like you said, I mean, you like and you're good at one of these parts of this process. So talk to me about the importance of finding the right people to surround yourself, whether it's like directly on the investor side or, working with people like the boots on the ground people. Like I sell title insurance for a living, like working with a title company or working with a surveyor or whatever. It doesn't matter, like a lender. Or I'm not a lender because there's investors, but stuff like that. So talk to me about the importance of putting that team together and making sure that everyone's values kind of align so that you don't have people on either side that are not rowing the boat in the same direction.
Yeah. I think just to take a huge step back is life. We have one life to live. And if we're trying to save ourselves from having a job and trading our time for money and just working to live, right? Or living to work or whatever the bad one is. I never know whatever, you know what I mean? Like, what are we doing? Are we jumping from the job into an entrepreneurial role that we're still miserable? No. So on the GP team or doing this business, there are lots of jobs. And if you can find what you do and love naturally, and this whole concept of, well, I never work a day in my life because I love what I do, like that's real. Not saying every moment of every day is going to be the best, even in what I do. Sometimes, like, man, I don't want to make this call, or, we have to do stuff. We're adults, right? But for the most part, I love what I do. I love talking to investors. I love interviewing sponsors. I love traveling to different places to discover, markets that I like or whatever. I love going to conferences. I love going to meetups. I know who I am and what I love.
Right.
I don't love underwriting. Why the hell would I put myself through that if I just left a job I didn't like?
Right.
Why would I create a new job for myself that I don't like? So I was very intentional about when I'm doing something. Is there friction? Or do I just pick up that phone and make that call? Or am I like, wow, I don't want to call this broker. I don't want to follow up with this broker. I don't, just pay attention to what comes natural and what there's friction. And then when you figure that out, you just stay in your lane. And then you find the people that love to do those other things. There are people who love underwriting, but they are so afraid to talk to an investor.
Yeah.
They're my best friends because you stay in your lane, I stay in mine. I do
Right.
what I'm good at, you do what you're good at, and we move forward together and everybody's at peace. So um, I would just say people as an individuals need to find the clarity in what they love first.
Yep.
And then, yes, finding the perfect complement on the team. And that person needs to be honest with themselves as well. That's truly, you say you're an underwriter. Do you truly love that? Or are you really better at something else? So finding where everybody is just kind of in their element, I think that's the destination you want. Because especially if you have overlapping skills and now it's like, well, who's doing what? Am I doing this? Are you doing that? And now maybe someone's doing something they don't like because the other person is doing that complementary skill. I would try to find more non-complementary skills so you don't overlap. And now you have 40 people on your GP and everybody is doing the same thing.
Right.
Well, we have 4 people on our GP. We'll make a lot more money and everybody just stays in their lane. So um, yeah, just being very conscious and honest with yourself about what you love.
Yeah.
And if you truly don't love something, there is someone out there that loves it.
Yeah. That's
And
true. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they're good at it.
Right.
So, but yeah, having the team, you need all the elements of a good team, but it's best if everybody is in their element that they truly thrive in.
Right. So one of the other things that I wanted to ask you is, so I don't know if I don't think I mentioned this to you before, but the majority of the people that listen to this show are between the ages of 25 and 35. So they're either working a 9 to 5 and then dabbling in real estate. They're new to the real estate industry. They're just new in a lot of ways, right? Like young
Mhm.
professionals, entrepreneurs, whatever it is. And I think that sometimes people that, I come across that, are interested in it, that maybe like have that imposter syndrome, right? Like, like you were talking about, you knew it, but you didn't really like believe that you knew it. I don't know. I don't want to put words in your
Mhm.
mouth, but like you knew what you needed to do, but you're just like, well, I can't really do that, and I think that that might be the thing that's kind of preventing people from making that jump fully into what you're doing now. Right. And so I think like, was that something that as you kind of kept leveling up, was that something that you ever had to contend with? Is that something that you still contend with? Or is that something that like, because you feel like you're so educated, you've done it, you have the team, you know the people, whatever, that you've kind of broken free from that?
I would say in the beginning, I I was the opposite. I didn't have imposter syndrome. I knew more than I thought I knew.
Got it.
So it was the opposite.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty conservative. I am a very authentic person. I don't ever try to be something I'm not. So this idea of imposter syndrome, I think if you feel like an imposter, you are, and you need to go get yourself educated. This is not a business to be an imposter in.
Right.
People need to know what they're doing. It's okay if you don't know, but do not try to sell security if you don't know what you're doing. Do not be an imposter. That is, if you have imposter syndrome, you're an imposter. Or maybe you know more, or you know more than you think or something. I don't know, whatever. But
Yeah.
if you think you're an imposter, then you need to go make sure you know what to do. This is a very serious business. You are handling people's life savings. It is a security, and if you do it wrong, you can end up in jail
Yeah.
or really screwing over your friends and family or other people's money. So
Right.
it is not a space to be an imposter. That being said, you have to get started somehow. So look for mentoring opportunities. Don't be afraid to pay for a coach or pay for a mentorship or work for free. Like, don't be an imposter. Get the education, get the experience so you feel confident moving forward. It's a very serious line of business. So I don't know if I answered your
No, yeah.
question specifically, but young people, yeah, just keep learning. There's so much free information out there. You don't actually have to pay into a coaching program. I personally, I'm on my third coaching program now. So I did Rich Dad Poor Dad, which was very, broad. Then I did How to Buy an Apartment Complex, right? That
Very
coaching
specific.
program.
Yeah.
And now I have a coach, How to Raise Capital from High Net Worth Individuals coach.
Right.
Like, it's very specific, but it's my journey. So there are mentorship programs, or you can work for free, or if you just get lucky and you know somebody who's great and they're in the business and you can be under their wing and shadow them, like, lucky for you. Or if you are a high net worth person, or you have a W 2 you love, you don't want to give it up, but you want to be involved, then maybe you are that LP and you can say, hey, I'm going to give you 100 grand, but I want to be a fly on the wall. I want to learn as I go. So there's always that.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't be an imposter, not in this business. I don't like that at all. You can look at all these people with these huge platforms. They're on every podcast, they're on at every conference, they have a social media presence, but it does not make them a good operator, a good person, or someone I'm going to give my money to. In fact, I would be more skeptical of those people.
Right, right. So, one of the things that I think is interesting about that too is the fact that, like, when I talk to a lot of these syndicators, and you had mentioned a couple ways that people can get involved, but like, if I'm a 25-year-old, I don't have 100 grand in the bank. I mean, maybe they do, and if they do, good for them. But I'm 31 and I don't. But so like, I think that also creates like this. It could be like an illusion of a barrier to entry, but it is somewhat a barrier to entry. You can't get in. Like if you have a minimum requirement of 25,000 to get into a syndication and you don't have it, you're not getting in. You know what I mean? So like you can do the coaching side of it, but like it's one of those things where I think it's such a like an interesting juxtaposition. And I don't know if that's the right word, but I'm going to use it because it's my show. A juxtaposition between like you need the money to get started, but you're not going to make a lot of money unless you get started. So like are there ways beyond that? I mean, I know you said like, trying to get involved or work for free and do that kind of thing. Like how can people push past that and at least like get the ball rolling so that they can eventually get to that platform where they can get involved with, a $25,000, LP or whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much free education out there, podcasts, books, whatever. I would start there. If they have a W 2 and they work 40 hours a week and they have this as a side gig, they just need to take it serious. If this is their exit plan, then they need to say, okay, I work my 9 to 5, and then from 5 to 6, I work out. From 6 to 7, I eat. From 7 to 10, I work on my business,
Yeah.
whatever that is. And their business, working on their business, might just be education. It might be going to a meetup. It might be investing and attending a conference. But at the end of the day, your network is your net worth. And I think, don't just sit behind a podcast all the time. You need to get out and meet the people doing the work, because that's how you're going to find a mentor or a coach or whatever. I mean, if you can't afford to invest 25K in a deal, I am assuming you don't have 25 or 30K to invest in a coach either. Although I didn't either, and I
Yeah.
put it on credit cards and whatever. I'm not saying to play that game necessarily, but I think investing in your education is smart. But if you are going to spend that kind of money and hire a coach, you better be serious about it. I mean, I'm the kind of person that if I spend the money, then I maximize
Right.
that. Some
Yeah.
people spend the money, it's crazy, and then they never
Yeah.
go to the coaching calls, they fizzle out. It just blows my mind how much money these gurus make
Yeah.
for these people that like pay the money and then never show up again. It's just blows my mind. Don't be that guy.
Right.
You're better off just investing in a deal,
Yeah.
if that's the case.
Right.
But
Or just
I
not doing
do,
it. Yeah. Like doing something else with that money.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
hopefully investing it, right?
Right. Of course.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, um, yeah, but I would say education and then attending the meetups or the conferences or whatever to meet the people in the business. And 25 isn't that young. I would say if it was 18 or 19, yeah, people aren't going to take you too serious. It doesn't mean you can't do it because I know some 21, 22-year olds that are doing some really awesome stuff.
Yeah.
25, I don't know. For the most part, looking at someone, I personally don't look at their age necessarily. It's their maturity. What do they know? What have they done? Who do they know? And if you yourself seem young, who is your mentor? Who is your co-GP? Who is your KP? Because everybody needs to do their first deal. I actually think young people, I'm very jealous because I was 35 when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad or somewhere around there.
Right.
So they're very lucky to even know right now as a young person that this is a path they should be on. So they should leverage that. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's the network, it's the
Right.
people.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with that because like with me selling title insurance, like you never know who you're going to meet. You never know where that next deal is going to come from. You know, it could be an attorney, it could be a developer, it could be some random guy on the street who's buying a house and needs title insurance for it. So like the more people you know, you cast a bigger net, odds are you'll catch a fish or two or maybe more, you know, but you got to put yourself out there and, you know, generate some business that way. So I 100% agree with that. So as we're kind of progressing through this, like you're talking about these things, and I know that you know, you work with investors and all that kind of stuff. That you're also talking about the education side and, you know, working with a coach and doing that kind of thing. Are you also doing stuff like that? Like, are you trying to put stuff out there to educate people? I know you're doing this show with me right now. I know you've done other podcasts before. Do you do any of that kind of stuff? So like if people are listening to this and they're like, hey, I really want to talk to Melanie about investing, is that something that you would be open to or offer, or is that something that you do?
So it's funny. It's something I'm trying to decide as a capital, more of the investor relations side of the business, raising capital. There's two ways in that I've learned how to raise capital, and one is the platform. So the education piece. I do have a YouTube channel. I haven't posted a video since March. So maybe that is a friction piece in my life, and I just give it up. Right? People start podcasts
Yep.
and just realize if you start a podcast, it is a job. Now you're a slave to the podcast. So only do it if you really love it. Starting a blog, same thing. Anything that you commit yourself to as far as this education platform is one way to bring in, you know, clients, business. But it's not the only way. My way is more high net worth individuals. I only want 50 households. I want to give them white glove service. And every deal I find, they all invest in. Like, that's all I want. I
Right.
don't want quantity, I
Yeah.
want quality. So, those are kind of the two ways to do it. None is wrong. But to answer your question, I mean, people can just call me. I'm typically at the moment pretty liberal with my time. I help a lot of people. People book on my calendar. Like, okay, I should send you a bill after that call, right? At the moment, I help a lot of people. Just I have the time right now, but if it gets out of hand, I will eventually have to, like, I don't know, do something else. I do have a mastermind for capital raisers specifically. It's not something I advertise. It's not something I talk about. And in fact, there's like an application. Like I have a screening call because it is a mastermind. It's not a meetup.
Right.
We're coming here to do work. We're not here to meet up. Like, this is a place to come and do work. So I do stuff like that. Yes, there's always a give back because other people helped me, but at the same time, I don't have time to do one-on-one with everybody. But for now, especially if they're going to be an investor, I'm happy to educate investors all day long. I want my investors educated. I want them to be making their own financial decisions. So yes, I talk to them, but to mentor or coach somebody, at the moment, a phone call, 20 minutes here or there, no biggie. But
Sure.
beyond that, I personally don't have like a training program or a
Right,
coaching
right, right.
program, anything
Yeah.
like
I
that.
was just curious. Yeah.
And
Um,
platform wise, I don't really. I really believe in the relationship piece. I go
yeah.
to a lot of conferences, meetups. I've been on a number of podcasts. Instead of having my own, I just go on other people's.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way. Like, I honestly, when I started seeing like the podcasting world benefit me, like this has been great for my business and what I do and how I do it, but also getting on others has been almost as good, if not better. And just because you get to talk to other audiences rather than the same audience that I talk to every week, and I think that
Yeah.
that's like a very unique thing, and I think that's great. So also kind of as you move forward, right? Like maybe not. Well, I'm going to save that question. I'm going to hang on to that one, put it in my pocket. The one
Okay.
thing that I wanted to ask is, as you said, it took you 18 months to find like that first deal that your investors were going to invest in. I remember that correctly, right?
Mhm.
So, has there been a moment at some point in this, path? Like I know you talk about clarity a lot and all that kind of stuff. Like, have you has there been a moment where you just kind of like take a step back and look at what you've done and be like, "Ooh, I got myself to where I wanted to be," or is there still a lot more meat on the bone that you want to continue to accomplish? Like, was there like that moment where like the switch got flicked and you were just like, "Hey," that's like really hard to say real fast. But like you made it. Is that happened?
So it's funny. At the very moment, I am very happy with where I am. I haven't arrived. I'm not financially free. I couldn't retire today.
Right.
But the path I'm on is reasonable in the amount of time it's going to take for me to hit my goals. And at the moment, I feel like I've arrived at where I need to be. I'm not looking down the road in a few years thinking, "Oh man, I got to scale this, got to do bigger." No, I honestly, because I'm kind of a minimalist. I am a lifestyle design person. I am right now sitting in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico,
Oh,
and I've been in Mexico since Thanksgiving, and I'll be here until the 14th. I'm kind of nomadic. I travel, but everywhere I go, I work. I don't feel like I'm on a vacation. My friend is down at the pool, my other friend's out wandering, and here I am working, which is fine because this is my lifestyle. I can't be on vacation all the time. So for me and my lifestyle design and my goals and what my financial freedom number is and what I'm seeking, like I'm on the path. So I'm not thinking bigger than this at the
yeah.
moment, which
Right.
that will make some people cringe, but this is my life. You get to live yours. So people who want to judge that, it's fine. I mean, sure. Could I be a multi-bazillionaire? Sure. But will I be at peace? Will I be living? I don't want to wait to live later. I'm living now.
Yeah.
So for me to live now, I have to kind of give myself a little grace on the amount of effort and the money that I could, I'm giving up some of the future wealth for the living now, right?
Sure.
But tomorrow is not promised. Today is all I actually have. So, um 2022 is going to be a big year for me. I have huge goals for 2022. I'll buckle down a little bit and stay actually in the States. Probably Austin is where I'm going to go back to and stay. I've joined a mastermind, and it's not a cheap mastermind, but it's called M1. It's Whole Life Millionaire, and it's a year program. And I just started that last week. So I ebb and flow. I push, and then I retreat and kind of look where I am. Am I happy? I'm on the right path. And then I do a push, and then I sit back. So that's kind of my mode in life. So at the moment, I am right where I want to be.
Yeah. Which is good that I asked that question first. My next question was going to be, let's talk about goals. So we already did that. So we're gonna move our show now, and this has been great so far. Just like very unique episode, love it so far. But we're gonna move the episode into our closing segment, which we call Under the Spotlight. So the Spotlighters have listening to Mike Ham and Melanie McDaniel talk for about 40 minutes so far. So what would be one thing that you would want them to walk away from this episode with? So you're under the spotlight.
So I'm super nerdy on the whole lifestyle design thing and one life to live and live now, don't wait to retire sort of thing. And it's not something that you can discover overnight. It's truly a journey of self and really reflecting on, are you truly happy? Are you happy in your daily life? Are you living for the present? Is the grass greener on the other side? Like, how can you make your everyday be where you want to be present in that day, assuming tomorrow is never going to come. If you died today, are you happy with where you are? And it doesn't mean we have to be at our final destination now or be that multimillionaire now, but on the journey, it's
Right.
the journey to whatever that is life. So
Yeah.
I just encourage people to think, like, structure their life in a way that the journey is as fulfilling as whatever we think the destination is. So for me, it's financial freedom. Passive income creates financial freedom. Once you know what your financial freedom number is and you have a path to get there, then you are then not a slave to the money. And then you can start deciding at that point, once you're financially free, okay, do I want to blow it out of the water? Do I want to set these high goals? Do I want to change not just my life, but future generations? But you've got to get yourself, you got to put your mask on first, right? You've got to have a full cup before you can pour out into others. And in our modern world, it's not that we need food and shelter necessarily. That's kind of there. Now it's the financial piece, and then it's the give back piece. So if you can get yourself financially independent, meaning you don't rely on the government or anybody else, you've got your own business, you have multiple sources of passive income, you're set. No matter what the economy does, no matter what happens, you are independent of anything outside of you. Now you can go and build a life of significance. So I do have a free resource on my website that's your guide to financial freedom. It just helps you put a number down, like think, what is my financial freedom number? If you don't know that, that's a conversation to have with yourself. And then, okay, I get what my financial freedom number is. Where am I starting from? And what do I have to do to get to that financial freedom number? It's just kind of a guide
Right.
that forces you to write down, kind of journal and do some math
Yeah.
and some budgeting and figure that out. So that's on my website, freestylecapitalgroup.com. Just if you go there, it's going to be the free guide, right? So that would be my to tell people, figure out your journey. How can you be happy today and every day while still striving for whatever it is that you want to leave behind this world when
Right.
you go?
Love it. Epic, epic under the spotlight. Fantastic answer. And I know we hit them real quick, but if people are listening to this episode, they want to learn more about you and more about what you do. Freestylecapitalgroup.com is the
Yep.
website. Is there any other place that they can go, or is that the hub?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on all the socials. I post pretty much the same thing. So if you like LinkedIn, you'll see it there. If you like Instagram, you'll see it there. If you like Facebook, you'll see it there.
Yeah.
I have a Twitter account. I'm not as consistent on there, so don't find me there. But I am there.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. They can email me, Melanie at freestylecapitalgroup.com. And at the moment, pretty liberal with my time and can help people. And people help me, so I'm happy to help others. So
Awesome.
yeah.
All right. So we'll make sure we put those freestylecapitalgroup.com. That's the hub in the show notes. And we'll make sure we tag the social links as well. I will make sure that I put the morningspotlight.com and the morningspotlight at gmail.com in the show notes also, in case for some reason you want to go through me to get to Melanie. I would be happy to make that introduction as long as she's still pretty liberal with her time. So Melanie, thank you so much for coming on with us today. Love this episode. Really great meeting you, and enjoy Mexico.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. And I'll enjoy Mexico. It's beautiful.
I'm sure. I've never been. Gotta go. But and everyone else, thank you for listening, and we will catch you next time.